Hi, welcome in. Hi. Surprise you. Hey, did anyone anything? Water? Everyone good?
So what happens at 9 o'clock?
I'm doing a live stream coffee tasting at 9. So normally I would do them like live in the store with like the customers, but because of COVID-19, I'm not actually allowed to hand out individual coffees to everyone.
Got it.
So what I do is I actually live stream them. Normally I do it at my live streaming studio, but my manager offered me to do it on Fridays here on the patio. So I just do it live on the patio on Fridays. So it's Tuesday and Fridays. Fridays on the patio, and then I just pretty much teach people about the coffee, where it comes from, how it got to where it is, and I teach a little bit about like the culture of the farmers too.
The culture of the farmers?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Helps people understand something they drink almost every day.
Exactly. Well, it puts a little bit more meaning behind the cup you drink every day too. So it's just like people
Right.
drink coffee not realizing like the impact that it has on the world, and then like it's interesting because it has a major impact on like farmers' economies, because you have a lot of parts of the world where their main crops were like maybe sugar or bananas, like Hawaii.
Right.
Back in the day before coffee was a big thing, their main money crop was pineapple and sugar. But then because pineapple and sugar started to be grown elsewhere in the world, their demand for pineapple and sugar from Hawaii started to dwindle, but the demand for coffee was going way up.
Right.
So they imported coffee to Hawaii, and that's why Hawaii imports coffee. And so after World War II, coffee saved Hawaii's economy, and then also helped them revitalize from like all the damage from from World War II.
Wow, that's a trip I didn't realize.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting learning these stories on like how coffee impacted these different parts of the world, and that's true for Latin America and Indonesia because coffee is origin is Ethiopia.
I was totally going to ask you where is
Yeah,
it?
so it's originally from Ethiopia. So
Is that East Africa?
like Northeast Africa, yeah, or it's actually like more like North Central Africa,
Okay.
but on the eastern side of like
Okay.
Central, yeah, because then you have Ethiopia and then Kenya, and then once you get to Kenya, then you start to dip into like India and the
Okay,
Southeast
got
Asia
it. Yeah, I
territories.
remember my Risk game board. Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's a good way to learn world geography.
Well, that's interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah, and so you learn that like coffee traveled through colonialism, which doesn't have a very nice story, but we learn about the impacts and like the after effects. So like it wasn't the past Tuesday, but the Tuesday prior to last, I did a special coffee history or Black History Month coffee tasting. But instead of talking about like local stories that we learned about here in America for Black History, I learned about Kenyan Black history and like what they went through during British colonialism and how that affected the Kenyans, and then what happened during World War One, World War Two, and then how they started to get their land back after World War Two. But when they got their land back in World War Two, there was an uneven distribution of land because the tribes were competitive. They fought over the land all the time. So when the British colonials gave them their lands back, there was this one tribe called the Kuyuku tribe or something like that, that pretty much kept all the land. They gave a little bit of the land to the other tribes, but they kept like a good like majority of it all. And there was a lot of civil unrest between the tribes because of this. And then you had the bigger tribes going around causing genocide, going around to the different tribes and killing the men and the children so that the women couldn't fight back. And then so so it's like a very very sad story, like all this stuff that happens. But then you have like how right now in Ethiopia you have like these tribes of all women that are taking up roles of leadership
Cool.
in a part of the world where leadership is frowned upon. So they're taking like a major step forward and like catching up with the rest of the world in progressiveness.
That's cool.
And so when they do that, it opens up everyone else's eyes to like, you know, like these other people, they might be too scared to take up that leadership role, or you know, take off the cowl and stuff like that. And so with this,
Right.
they see like, okay, these brave people are doing it.
Great example.
I'm gonna start doing it, or I'm gonna take that leap of faith. And then and that just impacts their beliefs and their like the way that they live their lives there. That's how that affects them. And then so with Latin America, it's all about agriculture and science and changing their economy regrowth as well. I learned recently about Honduras and how Honduras was impacted in the 80s really heavily with
Drugs.
exactly cartels. Exactly. It was known as one of the world's dangerous places to be because of
Right.
that. And you have a lot of farmers that are being paid virtually nothing. And then you have a company, coffee starts to be imported into Honduras, and they start coffee farming, and it's being ethically sourced. And that's something in that area that's not normally done, because these coffee farmers, or not coffee farmers, but just farmers in general, are being paid like little to nothing.
Pennies. Yeah.
Exactly. And so then you have these people that are starting to be ethically paid for their coffee, and then so like you say that you have someone who's being paid like $1 an hour, and that's just a random number. And then you have someone over here who's working on a coffee plantation, and they're getting paid $10 an hour because it's being ethically sourced, or you know, whatever their hourly wage is, $6 an hour versus
Yeah.
the $1 an hour. And then now you have these people who are making $1 an hour who think it's normal because everyone's getting paid $1 an hour. But then you see that, you know, what the real normal is $6 an hour, because you've just never seen the actual normal, because your whole area is being oppressed financially.
Sure.
And so
That makes sense.
so with this ethically sourced coffee making its way into Honduras, it's providing a normal wage to the normal person in Honduras, and it's opening the eyes of that normal person, of the other normal everyday person, being like, hey, like, I'm getting paid $1 to work on this cocaine plantation, while you're being paid $6 to work on a coffee plantation. You're doing a heck of a lot less work than I am. Like, what's going on here? So then they have that opportunity to be like, okay, I'm gonna switch jobs. And then you got like these people that are now competing for labor, so they have to increase their wages in order to keep those exactly.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and so that's how it impacted the labor force and the economy of the everyday person in Honduras. Yeah, super crazy.
It sounds like you have a very well-rounded idea of what's going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading and a lot of research, and like learning how coffee traveled, and understanding that it doesn't come from a happy place necessarily. Like, you know,
Great.
like in
Can't
the
end on that.
well, because you know, we build on that. Like, you know, you build off the chaos, you know. But in the very beginning, because you know, we all come from a history that's not necessarily to be proud of for a lot of people, and so in order to confront it, we learn those stories to better understand and avoid making those mistakes in the future.
Yes.
So that's what I do, is like we learn those not so nice stories to understand how we can build on it and avoid, you know, causing persecution in the future.
It's true. I once asked an art history professor, like, why does it matter what we have to know, like, all this stuff? And she was like, because if you don't know where you were, you don't really know where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And it took me a while to figure that out, but now, of course, I see it.
Yeah.
You don't want to repeat mistakes. You want to continue to build upon good ideas.
Yeah, so the main thing is just understanding that during the time period when coffee was booming, there was a lot of poverty going on in the world, especially with like slavery, and because coffee didn't start spreading around the world until the 1600s. And so It was discovered in the year 1000 or around the year 1000 by a goat herder, and then was kept amongst the royals and the rich. It was used as a commodity, so like the everyday person like you and I wouldn't get to drink coffee, and if we did, it was like the dirt coffee, like
A
the
rare occasion.
yeah, exactly. And so it wasn't until like the between the 1400s and the 1600s is when the royals started to colonize other parts of the world. So like Jamaica Blue Mountain is derived from French colonialism. So the French started to colonize islands around Jamaica, and then eventually coffee made its way from the island of Martinique to Jamaica. So I haven't really explored like whether or not there was any like slave labor going on there or like any kind of like mistreatment, but I do know that Jamaica Blue Mountain does come from the French royals. So that's how coffee made its way to Jamaica.
Google like coffee legends.
Okay.
Coffee folklore. I bet you there's pirates involved.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like tea and sugar.
Well, that's really cool. Good for you. It
Yeah.
sounds really interesting.
Thank
Great.
you.
Good luck with everything.
Absolutely. Thank you. The YouTube channel is called Live with Irish if you wanted to check it out.
Say it again.
Live with Irish. My nickname is Irish, so that's why it's that.
And that's your YouTube channel?
Yeah. Soon to be, but not too famous. I don't want to be too famous.
Well, nice to meet you, Irish.
Thank
I'm Brian.
you too.
Anybody who's Irish is famous.
All right, 10 minutes.
Good morning, you guys. We need to hold out for a minute so we can let some. Appreciate it. Take two. Okay.
What's your name? Adrian. Also, I'll check kind of another mobile order.
Another one? Hold on, hold on. As soon as he comes back.
Take it easy.
You too.
I don't see one. Was it this location? Okay. Wait, is it a mobile order? I can check for you. What's the name? David. Yeah, do you remember seeing that? Can you get a mobile? What's the name? Chris? Yeah, I'll check on that. Thank you. Is there anything in this letter? David and Chris.
twisted. Yeah, yeah.
Jaden.
Huh? You know what? I was afraid about that. Not feeling all good? Not feeling very well today. Yeah, I'm a bit joking.
Yes, Jaden.
He's pretty happy. He's thinking.
You got a thinking doctor. Did you? So what's the name? You're trying to place it. Yeah. All right. They're getting your resume.
You have a mobile also?
All right, everyone, welcome to another coffee tasting. My name is Aaron Taylor, and I'm your host. Today we are tasting the Sumatra blend, and this particular coffee is a single origin coffee from the Indonesian islands, and this is going to be a dark roast, and it's going to have notes of earthy and herbal notes. So this is going to be a very dark roast, and then we're going to be trying it two different ways. If you guys are joining me for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. If you guys are joining me again, welcome back. I appreciate you guys joining me for these coffee tastings. Today we're going to explore the flavor notes that Sumatra has to offer over the French press and the pour over. And so we're going to go ahead and get that brew going. So for those of you guys joining the coffee tasting for the first time, we like to brew our coffee two different ways. That way we can explore the different flavor notes that we get from different brew methods. And so with the French press, we're going to get a lot more of those sediment flavors and oils. And with the pour over, we're going to get a lot more of those sediments filtered out, and we're going to see a lot more of those brighter notes come forward. So with the Sumatra coffee, we're going to get like those really dark earthy notes, and those earthy notes are really important because that's what makes the foundations in all of our specialty coffees. When we have any kind of coffee like tribute blend, anniversary blend, any of the holiday blends like Christmas and Thanksgiving, those all use a Sumatra coffee as a base, and then we build upon that Sumatra flavor with other coffees from different parts of the world. And the reason why we use the Sumatra coffee is because it has that robust earthy flavor, and with that robust earthy flavor it kind of pairs well with a lot of different flavors, and you can enhance that bitter flavor with certain flavors, or you can kind of mellow it down with other types of flavors. So for the Sumatra blend, it is a little bit on the too dark side for me. I tend to go for like the lighter roasts, typically Latin American coffees. But this is a very, very popular coffee. And we're going to talk a little bit about how Sumatra became a coffee in the first place, and how coffee made its way to the Indonesian islands.
Thank you. Enjoy the weekend. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? I'm fantastic. How are you?
So what not a lot of people know is coffee originates from the country of Ethiopia. So when you have a cup of coffee or a blend of coffee that's from a different part of the world, say Latin America or Indonesia, it has a particular story on how it got to that region of the world. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how coffee migrated from Ethiopia to Indonesia, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how Sumatra became a coffee all on its own. I want to thank you all for joining me for today's coffee tasting. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them down in chat. I am more than willing to answer you guys' questions. And I hope you guys enjoy this particular brew with me. So a lot of people ask me what is the best way to brew coffee, and I don't think that there is a better way to brew coffee. It just depends on the type of flavor you're looking for. If you're looking for those strong, robust flavors, if you're looking for a nice, mellow cup of coffee, it might even be impacted by a lifestyle that you might have. If your stomach is sensitive to oils, or you can't handle those sediments very well, you definitely want to stay away from like a French press. And if you do have a really sensitive stomach, you might want to stick with like a Chemex. And the reason why you want to stick with a Chemex is because that Chemex has that triple filtered paper filter. And so we're going to filter out more of those sediments and a lot more of those oils. making it a much smoother, clean cup of coffee to drink, impacting your stomach a lot less. So if you get upset stomachs, that's something you might want to explore, is trying Chemex brew to see if that makes it much easier to drink and less of an impact on your stomach throughout the day. And then for me, my particular favorite brews of coffee actually change depending on the region that I'm brewing from. So typically, if I'm doing like a Latin American coffee, I like to do with the French press. But if it's like an Indonesian coffee or an African coffee, I tend to lean more towards the pour over. And the reason why I have that trend is because with the pour over, we're filtering out some more of those sediments, making those bitter flavors not so intense. So it kind of like mellows out that cup of coffee. So it makes a darker roast a little bit smoother, but not always. Sometimes with the pour over, those the paper filter brings forward those bright acidic flavors so much that it's a little too intense. And so with some of the dark roasts, I've actually found that they're better on the French press just because they make for a more balanced cup of coffee. For instance, last week we did the Komodo Dragon, and when we did it on the pour over, we realized that the paper filter really brought forward those bright roasty flavors so much that it made it really intense to drink on the sides of your mouth. And then with the French press, those the bitter flavors really came forward and balancing out those bright roasty flavors, making it a, like I said, a much more balanced cup of coffee to drink. All right, you guys. Now we're going to taste the Sumatra on the pour over. And so this one, I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of those bright herbal flavors on the pour over, and those bitter flavors are going to really take a back seat. Oh yeah, so right now what I'm getting is some really intense floral flavors on the sides of my tongue with a little bit of a bitter kick towards the center, but it's primarily those floral flavors. And then as I let my palate clear, we're getting that very dry mouth feeling on the sides of our tongue from those floral flavors, almost like you drank like a red wine that leaves you with a dry palate. So with the Sumatra pour over, you're definitely going to want something savory. Have a great day. So we're definitely going to want to try something savory with the pour over coffee if you don't like that dry mouth feeling, just to make it a much more pleasant cup of coffee. If you do like the dry floral mouth feeling, then this is definitely the best way to brew the Sumatra for you. It is still a really good cup of coffee. I'm not a big fan of that floral flavor, so I would probably lean more towards the French press, but we're going to find out right now. All right, so now we're going to taste the French press, and with the French press, we're going to get a lot more of those sediments and a lot more of those oils. So we're going to see a much more bolder cup of coffee, and I'm assuming this one's going to be much more balanced too, because we're not going to see as much of those bright acidic flavors. So with the French press, we're still getting that intense, bright herbal flavor, but it's not nearly as pronounced as it was on the pour over. It's much more mellow, and then it doesn't have that lingering effect that is like holding onto your tongue. So it's a much smoother cup of coffee. Still has that bright floral flavor. So if you like those bright floral flavors, if you like an IPA beer, if you like tea, would be a really great coffee for you because it has that quality of like a hoppiness or herbal florally flavor. Really good. So I personally prefer the French press over the pour over, and the reason why is because we're getting a lot less of those floral flavors. We still get those floral flavors on the French press, but it's not as pronounced, doesn't take a front seat like it does on the pour over. And then with the pour over, we get that lingering attached effect on the tongue, and that's not so strong with the French press. And that's what I am favoring on the French press right now, is that it doesn't have that lingering flavor like the pour over does, and then also it's a little bit more balanced. Still has that bright floral kick in the very beginning, but definitely not as intense as the pour over. So I am going to be sipping on the French press for the remainder of the coffee tasting. Let me know what you guys thought of the flavors of the Sumatra, and then if you guys have a particular favorite roast that you guys like to drink, throw that down in chat. I would love to feature your guys' favorite coffee on this channel in the future. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Sumatra coffee and how coffee made its way to the islands of Indonesia. So back around 700, 600 years ago, coffee was used as a trading commodity amongst the royals and the rich. So we have the Arab royals, the English royals, and the French royals, all using coffee as a form of commodity between each other. And so at this time point in age, not a lot of people had access to coffee. It was very uh, I, I'm having a loss for words. So not a lot of people had access to coffee around 600, 700 years ago. You had to be rich, or you had to be a royal or connected to the royal line somehow. Um, and so it wasn't until the 1600s is when Dutch colonialism actually started to import coffee from Yemen to the Indonesian islands. And so with this import of coffee, we have the growth of agriculture in this region, and it impacts this part of the world greatly, because a lot of the farmers in Indonesia, 80% of their economy today relies on coffee exports. And so when you rely that heavy on coffee export, that means 80% of your money all year round relies on whether or not you're able to harvest a good crop. And so when you miss out on a crop, or your crop doesn't yield enough, you're going to be missing out on some money to sustain you for the year. And so with farmers down there having a little bit of trouble growing enough coffee, um, we have Starbucks has started a couple initiatives down there where we help agricultural scientists learn how to best grow coffee in that region and pick the right varietals to grow. That way that they can get the maximum yield and the maximum harvest, and still get that quality Arabica beans that we require. That way we're getting that quality flavor, the robust flavors, and um, making sure that we get the flavor that we want out of the Sumatra. Another important part with coffee making its way to this area is the fact that we ethically source our coffee, and making sure that there's fair trade involved with all the coffees that we source. And so with the fair trade, we're making sure that all the farmers are properly being paid the proper wage, and that they're getting a sustainable lifestyle. And then even in the events that some farmers aren't able to crop the desired yield, there are initiatives that Starbucks has done to help those farmers um, increase their yield and increase their farmland. And so some of the things that Starbucks has done they've helped them create recreational facilities in that part of the world, where they have better medical facilities, a safer place environment, because that part of the world is a very dangerous place to live. You have a lot of poisonous flora and dangerous fauna. And with the dangerous flora and fauna, you have the opportunity to succumb to illness very easily in that area. And so, something that they were lacking is proper medical facilities. And so, something that Starbucks has done for some of the communities of these growers is help them build better medical facilities so that they can get the proper medical treatment that they need to combat the wilderness in this part of the world. Another really cool story in this part of the world in Indonesia is Starbucks has helped some of these farmers expand their farms in terms of facilities. So when they grow like larger storage silos and other things like that, so that way they can in turn grow more, crop more, and then sell more. And by being able to sell more, they're actually able to make more money for that year and not have to worry about the money that they make being able to last them the entire year. And so that's something that is a constant struggle for some of these farmers, is actually being able to farm and crop enough coffee to sustain them for the entire year. And Starbucks has worked with these farmers to help create larger and more sustainable farms, so that worry isn't so heavy on their shoulders. So that is the origin of Sumatra coffee. It's a coffee that is originated from Yemen, and the coffee migrated from Ethiopia to Yemen, and then Yemen to Indonesia. And then it wasn't until the late 1980s is when Sumatra was actually invented. And this particular cup of coffee, or this particular blend of Indonesian coffee, is named for the residents of the island Sumatra. So we have the Sumatra coffee named after the locals of the area, and it's dedicated to their passion for coffee and their hard work to grow this amazing, robust, flavorful cup of coffee. Very, very complex. If you guys have any questions on the Sumatra coffee and any other coffee that you guys might have, if you guys have any questions on the brewing methods that I chose here, go ahead and throw it down in chat. I'd love to answer you guys' questions. If you guys are watching this stream later and it's not live, go ahead and throw your comments down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I'd love to reach out to you guys and answer you guys' questions and really help you guys figure out what might be the best brewing method for you, what might be the best brew for you. So go ahead and throw those comments down below, you guys. I look forward to answering all those questions. So for those of you guys who are returning to the live stream, you guys might know this already, but for those of you guys who are new to the live stream, my particular favorite cup of coffee is the Shade Grown Mexico. It is a blend of coffee that we used to serve, but we don't no longer serve it here in the stores. I have only seen it down in Mexico, so that's the only place that I have been able to find it as of recently. But when I was at Green Bean, that was one of the first coffee that I was introduced to, and it has been my favorite ever since. And with the Shade Grown Mexico, we have notes of milk chocolate and a caramely sweetness, and that is like my ideal flavor profile, is that milk chocolate with the caramely sweetness, and then the fact that it's shade grown Mexico, so it's grown underneath the canopy trees, so that it still gets light, but then it has that shade so that it's getting like the exact nutrients that it needs. And because it's grown in the shade, you have that foliage that's falling down and constantly covering the ground. and with that foliage, you're actually providing more nitrogen nutrients to the ground by the decomposition of the leaves. And so we're creating this environment for the coffee to really grow full-bodied and robust, and really accentuate those milk chocolate and caramel flavors. Really, really good. That is my favorite cup of coffee. Unfortunately, you can only get it in grocery stores in Mexico, and I have seen it in like an airport as well. Um, but uh, anyone who likes a nice bold cup of coffee, and if you like tea or like a nice IPA beer, the Sumatra is going to be definitely for you, because you get that robust herbal flavor with a complex bitterness towards the center. And then I would recommend brewing it on the French press, because you get a more balanced cup of coffee. But if you do like those floral flavors, I would go with the pour over, because you do get that herbal forwardness, and then you get that lingering flavor like a dry wine. So, thank you guys for joining me today's coffee tasting. I hope you guys enjoyed the knowledge, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about this coffee. I hope that next time you guys drink Sumatra, you'll think about this story and really appreciate this particular cup of coffee. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Have a great day. I will see you on Tuesday, where I will be featuring one of the other local coffee shops, Ristretto, and I'll be exploring their coffee that they have to offer there, and just really exploring the origin of that particular blend of coffee. So see you guys Tuesday for the Ristretto coffee shop and their coffee, and explore that coffee. And then I will see you guys next week, where we will explore the Pike's Place here at the Starbucks store. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.